Good evening, everyone. My name is Carl Lejwe. I'm the Dean of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the University of Kansas, and I'm thrilled to be here to introduce such an incredible event. We have live music. We're talking about rap, one of the most popular and lasting new music genres in our time, and we're talking about one of the newest legends of rap, Kendrick Lamar. While it might sound convenient for me to say this tonight, I actually have a little bit of a history with Kendrick. When I was applying for this job as dean, I had a little mix. I guess you don't have mixtapes anymore. I'm showing how old I am, but had a little mix. I won't say what some of the songs are. I'll probably embarrass myself if I did. But the last song was Good Kid, Mad City. And at first I just had it on there because I liked it. And you know, it's a vulnerable time when you're interviewing. And there's that part where the song just shifts, and it kind of I'm a psychologist, so you have that little bit of catharsis right there. But what I realized after a while was there were some things in that song that I didn't hear the first few times I listened to it about how the world perceives you and who you really are and how do you kind of shift between those. But before I embarrass myself because I'm just a fan, we actually have scholars here tonight that can talk about this. And that's where our guests come in. And I'm pleased to welcome Sequoia Manor, a doctoral student who's here from the University of Texas at Austin. Her research specializes in the rhetoric of hip hop. We also have a panel discussion featuring some of our KU faculty and graduate students. Thank you to Aisha Hardison, Jamila Jones, and Nicole Hodges Pursley. And we have a live musical performance from KC artist Storm & Co., featuring May C. Last, I want to thank Tony Bolden, an associate professor of our African and African American Studies department and the creator of the Make It Funky series. This is the 5th installment of the Make It Funky lecture series, which has encouraged scholarly consideration of slam poets, funk music, and more. I know he's not our focus tonight, but in the words of the Jizza, and honestly, he is a genius, hip-hop is a vehicle to scientific and universal enlightenment. So with that, on behalf of the KU College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, I'm proud to support this series with our Department of African and African American Studies. Thank you all to our guests, speakers, and organizers, and thank you for being here tonight. And I'll turn it over to Tony now.
How's everybody? Okay, try to see here. All right, well, first I want to offer some thanks. So I want to, first of all, thank Dean Lejwe. I also want to thank my chair of African and African American Studies, Clarence Lang. And I want to send a very special thank you to Jessica Beeson for all of her help, and thank all of you for being here. I really appreciate it. Since I haven't organized one of these events in a while, I thought I might make a few preparatory statements about tonight's theme and the program overall. Since I borrowed the title Make It Funky from James Brown's recording of the same name, you might ask, I'm having problems seeing, what is funk and how does the concept relate to Kendrick Lamar? If you've seen Kendrick's I video, the old man sitting down with a hat on in the first scene is none other than George Clinton, AKA Dr. Funkenstein himself, whose music was sampled more extensively by early DJs than any other musician, with the possible exception of James Brown. So that's a direct link to the genre of funk music of the 1970s. But Kendrick is also a 21st century manifestation of the concept of funk, which was created by blues artists over 100 years ago. At its most basic level, funk is an intense feeling of pure joy. The word means realness and honesty at one's deepest emotion. When we hear a song and embrace what we feel by clapping our hands or tapping our feet or moving our body from side to side, we're expressing that honesty and engaging what blues people call the funk. But in the late 1890s, when the word was created, it was considered a bad word because it was associated with sex and that other four-letter F word, which I won't mention. Consequently, black youth created new words that had the same meaning but didn't provoke the kinds of reactions from elders that funk did. When black musicians started recording their music in the early 1920s, they called their music hot. When hot played out, they called it swing. Then they called it soul. And when the 1970s came along after the civil rights movement and black people developed enough pride in the culture to speak freely about it, musicians finally called it funk. Then Lil Jon called it crunk. And now people say turned up. Of course, all these words are associated with specific genres of music in specific spaces and time. That is only natural. Artists discover new technology and develop new approaches to the science of sound. In the process, styles change, but in terms of emotional reference, all of these words are pretty much interchangeable. Consider the following comments on the meaning of turned up by feminist scholar Brittany Cooper. She writes, and I quote, "One envisions a knob being turned, cranked, to its highest levels. Crunk means to be all the way turned up. It means to have turned up," unquote. Cooper's definition of crunk and turned up is precisely what blues singers meant when they said the funk is flying back in 1925. So if we fast forward to music today, real hip hop is the contemporary expression of that realness and honesty that characterizes the funk. And Kendrick Lamar is without question what scholars would call a resplendent exemplar of real hip hop. At the same time, it's important to bear in mind that there are multiple expressions and variations of real hip hop. Tonight we're going to hear a unique Kansas City performance of real hip hop by Storm and Company featuring May C. Storm told me to let everyone know that she has CDs for sale. And she also has a DVD screening on April 23rd from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at UMKC, at the UMKC Student Union in Kansas City, Missouri. But before we listen to the band, we'll listen to our keynote speaker, Sequoia Maynor, who has returned to KU after being a fellow in the NEH Summer Institute titled Black Poetry After the Black Arts Movement, directed by the distinguished professor of English, Mary Emma Graham. Ms. Maynor is currently a doctoral student in English at University of Texas at Austin, where she is writing her dissertation on Kendrick Lamar and Black Lives Matter. Our panelists for this evening are Aisha Hardison, Jamila Jones, and Nicole Hodges Pursley. Professor Hardison is in her first year at KU, and we are very pleased to have her. She is Associate Professor of English and Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies. She was the Langston Hughes Visiting Professor here at KU in fall 2014. Her book, which was published in 2014, is titled Writing Through Jane Crow, Race and Gender Politics in African American Literature by University of Virginia Press. Jamila Jones is a graduate of Payne College and a graduate student in African and African American Studies. She has played a vital role in student activism on campus. And last but certainly not least, Nicole Hodges Pursley, and I've worked with her on the program on 3 occasions at least, not to mention a host of other things. So she's a veteran of the series. So Dr. Hodges Pursley teaches courses on hip hop, African American theater, and race and performance theory. Her book, Sampling and Remixing Blackness in Hip Hop Performance, is currently in press. After the panelists respond to Ms. Maynor's presentation, we'll open up the floor for questions and comments, and then we'll listen to the band. So at this time, please give Sequoia Maynor a big KU round of applause.
Hey y'all, how you doing? Good. Thank you for coming out on game night. And thank you for so warmly welcoming me. So let's make sure our presentation works. Great. If you want to live tweet it, #MakeItFunky. Also, all of the artists and all the artists that I mentioned in this talk and Kendrick's music is on a Spotify playlist at Make It Funky 5. Follow us. Okay. In the year 1992, I was 7 years old and living in Long Beach, California. In the year 1992, 4 men were acquitted in the violent videotaped assault of Rodney King. In the year 1992, Latasha Harlins was shot in the back of the head by a Korean store owner. In the year 1992, buildings burned and residents raged in Long Beach, in South Central, in Compton. South LA residents, largely minorities and largely poor, took to the streets. For 6 days, the smoke hung thick, families hunkered down, some got in on the action. When the smoke cleared, more than 50 people were dead, 10,000 arrested, and over $1 billion in property damage remained. Kendrick Lamar and I are the same age, and we grew up just miles apart. So in the year 1992, along with thousands of other children living in Los Angeles, we experienced the trauma of uprisings, the trauma of watching the only world we know burn, the trauma of fearing for the bodily safety of mama, auntie, grandpa, cousin. It's only fitting that 25 years later, as Ferguson and Baltimore rage against police abuse, as Black Lives Matter activists organize around the country against state-sanctioned violence, as St. Louis and Chicago erupt in reaction to the hate speech of Donald Trump and his followers, as the country prepares for a post-Black presidency, as a new generation discovers the power that comes with embodied activism, it's only fitting that Kendrick Lamar, this Black boy genius whose earliest memories are of a burning Los Angeles and its aftermath, revives the protest tradition in popular music. I consider Kendrick Lamar to be one of the most important public intellectuals of the early 21st century. We can all acknowledge that he is one of the most talented rappers to ever come on the scene. In a mere 3 years, Lamar has earned the label as one of the greatest of all time, and the acclaim is pretty deserved. As a rapper, his skill and lyrical dexterity is unparalleled. His lyricism is complex and rhythmic and rich. He spits bars upon bars and is able to navigate the music in beautiful and interesting ways. Lamar brings attention to the details of the craft, such as cadence, rhyme, dynamics, intonation, harmony, texture. I want to listen to just about 30 seconds of the track Mama from To Pimp a Butterfly, and you can really hear the way that Lamar is playing with the technical aspects of rap.
This feeling is unmatched. This feeling is brought to you by adrenaline and good rap. Black Pendleton, ball cap. West. We don't share the same synonym, far back. West. Been in it before internet had new acts. Beverly, how menaces turn attraction. Pivoting rappers finish a fraction while writing blue magic. Thank God for rap. I would say it got me a pack, but what's better than that? The fact it brought me back home.
Dazzling, right? So Kendrick Lamar's talent and his success is indicative of a new shift in the genre of hip hop. I want to argue that one of the ways he's reimagined what hip hop has the potential to do in the world is by adding a hyper-literary quality to his work. So while many would acknowledge that rappers are some of the most talented poets in the world, few popular artists are credited with paying as much attention to the craft of rhyming as Kendrick Lamar. Significantly, Lamar refers to himself as a writer and not a rapper. And it seems to me that Lamar is saying he moves past hip-hop's conventional narrative strategies and places added emphasis on aspects like composition and form, added emphasis on the art of storytelling. It's clear that Lamar is gifted and that he's practiced and honed his craft for years to become the masterful wordsmith we hear today. However, there's much more than lyrical play that constitutes him as one of the most important voices to ever gain a platform in hip-hop. He is laser-focused and delivers a precise mission statement with each song. Kendrick Lamar practices storytelling that pulls back the veil from poverty in Black communities and moreover, reveals what it's like to live as a Black boy genius in the midst of that poverty. While describing the external world in vivid fashion, he also explores a complex inner life. His work is self-reflexive and introspective. This balance between the external and internal creates a full-bodied and multi-dimensional representation of Blackness and Black art that begs to be read and listened to many times. Lamar's extraordinary talent for storytelling in a way that delivers targeted stories and universal themes is one of the primary reasons that his studio albums, Good Kid, Mad City, and To Pimp a Butterfly, have garnered so much positive attention. Kendrick Lamar practices a deeply moral and centered art. He is our hip-hop poet, our prophet of the hood, to use the phrasing of Imani Perry. In an interview, Lamar states, "I have a purpose. God put something in my heart to get across, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And that's me being as vocal as possible, using my voice as an instrument, and doing what needs to be done." Lamar's art moves us. The rapper functions as a vehicle of the divine, and with each creation, he understands himself as doing what needs to be done. He's in this industry to perform real, sustained, and substantive work, political work, psychological work, aesthetic work, spiritual work. So in order for me to get closer to fleshing out just why Kendrick Lamar is one of the most important Black musicians of the 21st century, I want to take a closer look at these different types of work that I mentioned: political work, aesthetic work. So let's start with the political. A week after Beyoncé slayed her defiant new single, Formation, at the Super Bowl halftime show, Kendrick Lamar took the Grammy stage. Both of these venues, the Super Bowl and the Grammys, are oriented around entertainment and spectacle, events where the nation collectively pauses to sit with family and friends and watch a show. Beyoncé and Lamar capitalized on their respective moments of spectacle to include Black Power political statements in their performances. I imagine when Lamar entered the stage, shackled in chains and shuffling single file in a coffle while sorrowful saxophone wailed in the background. I imagine the nation took a collective gulp of air. I know I did. In the quietude of this stunning moment, Lamar delivered the first verse of The Blacker the Berry, a scathing critique of anti-
You sabotage my community, making a killing. You made me a killer, emancipation of a real nigga.
The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. The blacker the berry, the sweeter the...
The Blacker the Berry speaks of the impact of internalized racism, the rage that results from living behind the veil, the fury that comes with oppression. He demands the American public answer his question of, "You hate me, don't you?" And in return, spits back the blackest of Black images. Lamar's Grammy performance was a visual representation of ideas within the Blacker the Berry, the idea that white audiences participate in the consumption and appropriation of Blackness, that a generation of Americans is wrestling with the racism they've been born into, that Blackness is a doubly conscious condition that produces both pride and fury that is in constant tension. The image of the chain gang and backdrop of prison cells made us really see the prisoners this nation has constrained, disregarded, made invisible. We are made to bear witness and are forced to reckon. We, the American viewing public, was revealed to be complicit. The image of Kendrick Lamar shackled was a reminder that success cannot save us, that even beloved Blackness can fall victim to violence. The image reminded us of America's dark history and our current crisis of mass incarceration. And then suddenly, the prisoners broke loose of their shackles, fire scattered the sky, and infrared lights revealed that the prisoners' clothes were in fact embellished with neon-colored Afrocentric designs. The liberated prisoners became riotous, joyous dancers. They reveled in the rebellious glory of their unchained bodies. They luxuriated in freedom, bending backs and limbs and leaping and flexing and crumping in a display of powerful, unrestrained, capable Blackness. Shifting from abjection to power, Lamar's Grammy performance took us through different representations of Blackness. He transitioned to a massive bonfire as dancers dressed in representations of ancestral Africa formed rings around him. He then came back to center stage alone and gave us a moment of introspection that meditated on the 2012 murder of Trayvon Martin, the inaugural injustice that sparked the Black Lives Matter movement. Lamar's Grammy performance ended in stunning fashion as he stood still in silhouette, shrouded by the black and white image of the African continent, with the single city of Compton placed like a capital on a map. It was an image that erased the borders of countries, united the African continent, and translocated Compton to a new home. It was an image that highlighted a universal Blackness and asked us to consider the social conditions facing Black Americans and Black Africans together. Kendrick Lamar performed an undeniable Black power statement made on one of the most visible entertainment platforms available. This boldness and urgency and artistry are part of why we are drawn to Lamar's work. Lamar grapples with some of the most pressing social issues of the 21st century: the prison industrial complex, the widening gap between rich and poor, the persistence of racism. One of the most powerful features of Lamar's art is that he communicates the ways we are living with new vocabularies, new technologies, new mechanisms for oppression, but also the way we are living with old ideologies, old stereotypes. From Lamar's breathtaking Grammy performance, we can see that he pays meticulous attention to the staging and visual dimensions of his performances. The composition of his album covers confirm the way that Lamar sculpts the smallest aspects of his presentation to the world and how each detail contributes to a larger mission statement.
If Pyros and Crips all got along, they probably got me down by the end of the song. Seem like the whole city go against me. Every time I'm in the street, I hear yak, 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 yak.
Man down, where you from, nigga? Fuck who you know, where you from, my nigga?
Was back when I was 9, Joey packed a 9, pack a stand on every porch is fine.
The cover art of Good Kid, Mad City is a worn Polaroid from Kendrick Lamar's personal archive, what Lamar calls a self-portrait. The snapshot features 3 young men sitting around a small dining table that holds a small floral centerpiece, a 40-ounce of beer, and a baby bottle. The young men's eyes are blacked out with censorship bars. A juvenile Kendrick Lamar sits uncensored with wide and innocent eyes in the middle of the group. The 40-ounce oversized white tees and gang signs instantly criminalize these young men, marking them as products of the hood. Lamar creates an album-long meditation on the good kid struggling to survive in the mad city of Compton. It is the story of a nerdy, dreamy, and purpose-driven child who must avoid the landmines and pitfalls sprinkled everywhere in the hood. Good Kid, Mad City is a coming-of-age story that describes the transition from boy to man, from darkness to light, from oppression to something that looks a little closer to freedom. Lamar has written a powerful autobiography that describes a painful truth of the struggle to get outside of the city's tangle of vices and violence. In the clip we heard from the track Mad City, Lamar captures the terror that comes at 9 years old in watching a man die, the terror that comes with living in the crosshairs of feuding Piru Bloods and Compton Crips, the terror that comes with gangsters questioning what set you claim, where your grandma stay, where you from, nigga, as they suss out whether you're friend or foe, the terror that comes with checking your clothing to make sure your colors are correct for fear of bodily harm. Lamar is singular in his capability to communicate the demanding and disturbing condition of Blackness that so many people in hoods across the country know. And this tension-filled condition of being is captured on nearly every song he creates on this album. There's a sense that at any moment, for any reason, one might be hemmed up by the police or could be shot at or could quite literally lose their mind trying to navigate the evils of the hood. We feel what it's like to live under state surveillance, to sleep in inferior housing, to navigate highly contested gang territory, to be dependent on government welfare, to bear witness to murder. Lamar crafts songs that communicate the fear of mortality and the desire for deliverance. And yes, we could say that many writers capture the reality of growing up in the hood, and I'm thinking about Nas's Illmatic and Biggie Smalls' Ready to Die as two albums that give us a similar feel, but Kendrick Lamar is doing something new, right? Uniquely 21st century. The album cover for To Pimp a Butterfly highlights two disparate worlds that are imagined together in a striking way. Lamar captures how we live in a time of contradictions and paradoxes, a time where at once we can celebrate the achievement of the first Black president and also excuse the incarceration and death of young Black people. Compton residents pump fists filled with stacks of cash and champagne bottles while celebrating over the body of a judge who holds gavel in hand on the White House lawn. Lamar once again deploys the element of censorship. However, here, the judge's eyes are X'd out. This is a subversive image that imagines an inverted world where the hierarchies of white supremacy are inverted, where Black folk hold power. The black and white album cover emphasizes how To Pimp a Butterfly is fundamentally concerned with the way that race operates. We heard this on The Black or the Berry, of course, and Lamar's concerned with the consumption and profitability of Blackness, the pimping and exploitation of Blackness. Lamar produces an album-long interrogation of the many ways Black artists and public intellectuals are controlled, mocked, and have been used as resources by white America throughout history. He exposes to a new generation how stereotyped notions of Blackness are always and already circulating and reproducing in mass culture. Like his previous work, To Pimp a Butterfly is a deeply personal album, and so much so that sometimes it's uncomfortable to listen to. Lamar explores his paralyzing depression, loss, mourning after newfound success, and he's talked openly about his struggles with depression, which is pretty phenomenal given the hyper-masculinity and machismo that we see in hip-hop. We hear Lamar struggle with the survivor's guilt that comes with making it out of the hood, the guilt that comes with not being able to save everyone from violence, the guilt that comes with the successful escape from poverty.
With your antennas on the road, bottles and benches, you face.
Yeah, that's just a little clip from the song You, and it's pretty hard to look at. He paints a powerful portrait of Lamar trapped in a hotel room, drinking alcohol, screaming in pain and frustration, and these screams echo throughout To Pimp a Butterfly. It's the portrait of a man spiraling into a psychotic break after the violent loss of yet another friend while away on tour. It's a song that gets us close to the frank helplessness and despair of something like suicidal thoughts from the Notorious B.I.G. To Pimp a Butterfly is an album of contrasts, death and rebirth, private and public, black and white, pleasure and pain. All of these are thrown into sharp relief. Lamar explores the darkest parts of human nature, yet still provides a redemptive quality of hope, of achievement for listeners. Whereas Good Kid, Mad City is confined to the square blocks of Compton's city limits, To Pimp a Butterfly reflects the well-traveled artist who has flown from the cocoon of Compton to return with lessons and tools and resources. He takes us to the places he's been, from Compton to South Africa, so that we may better understand ourselves outside of the familiar. That ideological expansion is reflected in the sonic landscapes which blend jazz, spoken word, and funk. The innovative production on Lamar's albums makes us listen at several frequencies. If Good Kid, Mad City is a blues album, then To Pimp a Butterfly is a jazz album. Both, however, have the sound of G-funk at their core. Part of the appeal of Lamar's music is that funk runs all up and through his albums. So I just want to listen to the last part of King Kunta that ends in this funk swirl, and you guys should hear what I'm talking about.
At the time you hear the next pop, the funk shall be within you.
Now I run the game, got the whole world talking King Kunta. Everybody wanna cut the legs off of King Kunta. Black man taking no loss. Oh yeah. Bitch, where
Do you want the funk? Man, if I give you the funk, you gon' take it.
In his book, The Funk Era and Beyond, our resident funk scholar, Tony Bolden, teaches us that funk describes innovative aesthetics. Funk is pleasure. Funk is working up a sweat to infectious rhythms. Funk looks backward and dreams forward. Funk is Afrofuturism. Funk samples and remixes. Funk is black style. Funk is black agency. Like the band Funkadelic once told us, funk is a way to dance ourselves out of our constrictions. When Lamar connects the dancing body to the dreaming mind, he is capitalizing on the force of funk, and more specifically, he's capitalizing on the force of G-funk, which is an adaptation and interpolation of that 1970s sound. And I'll just say that most acknowledge Dr. Dre as the architect of G-funk. With his 1993 album, The Chronic, and of course that was released the year after the LA riots and really worked as this soothing, healing balm for the city. And it's interesting that Kendrick Lamar is reviving G-funk in another socially turbulent time, right? And also Dr. Dre is the producer of Good Kid, Mad City. So G-funk was the sound in the ears of kids like Lamar and I growing up in Los Angeles. Kendrick Lamar takes that G-funk sound and amplifies it, and the result is a full, surround sound quality music that's both danceable and thoughtful, that looks backward and dreams forward. So with more time, I would discuss how jazz and spoken word really contribute to this expanded narrative that he has on To Pimp a Butterfly. Maybe we can talk about it in our Q&A session. But I just want to underscore that Lamar is very aware of the sonic layers and the sonic histories within the music. So I started my talk with fiery memories of 1990s Los Angeles because LA, its beauty, its chaos, its history, its sounds is everywhere in the music. Los Angeles is in the lyricism, the grooves, the performance of masculinity and consciousness in the work of Kendrick Lamar. He has proudly branded himself as a product of Compton and as a citizen of the world. A prophet of the hood who counters death in the rebellious act of joyous living. It is of utmost importance that we have an artist who tells us that we can move past surviving to thriving, that we can build ourselves up when we feel most fractured. We live in a strange time that's post-civil rights, that's post-Black power, that is violent and uncertain, and Lamar's music gives us what we need in times like these: a loud scream, a quiet dreaming, a meditative reflection, a rhythmic consciousness, flight that transcends madness, I want to suggest that we listen to Lamar because after he takes us through the trauma, through the rage, he brings us to a place of lightness and clarity. He brings us that much closer to reaching a space of healing and redemption. He lets us know that indeed we gonna be all right. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking Dr. Bolden for inviting me to join this panel. Even though I'm not a hip hop head, I'm actually an R&B girl. I really appreciate the opportunity to listen to Sequoia's talk and your analysis of Kendrick Lamar and thinking about his joy, which Dr. Bolden related to funk, but also the work of his music, the aesthetic, and the political work. I also was really struck by the way you highlighted his visual art, right? So not just his lyrics, but also his performances, his covers, and his videos, and drawing our attention to his awareness of his sonic roots, both in jazz as well as funk, as well as others. So those things kind of stuck out to me in your talk that I really appreciated in your analysis of Kendrick Lamar. And a lot of things that you said resonated with my own thoughts about his music. So Sequoia, one of the things I thought was really interesting about what you said about Kendrick Lamar's music is that he's hyper-literary and thinks of himself as a writer and not a rapper. And I think one of the examples of this is his reference to Alice Walker in All Right, which is interesting because it's the quote, the iconic scene that Oprah Winfrey delivers as Miss Sophia that's been turned into a joke by Tyler Perry in his drag performance in Medea. And so starting his song in that way and acknowledging Black women and Black women's struggle as part of the Black community struggle is really powerful in that song when Black women in many ways are kind of excluded from the projects and the political messages of hip hop. The other thing that stands out to me in your talk is thinking about Kendrick Lamar as part of a protest tradition and not just an emerging kind of post-Black presidency, but also a post or maybe even a new civil rights moment, right, or movement that might be interesting to think about that we've seen kind of erupt in cities like Ferguson and Baltimore. So I was really struck by the way that, Sequoia, you started your discussion with 1992, the significance of that date, and the Rodney King beating and urban uprisings in the city. And so I come to Kendrick Lamar by way of dates starting in 2012, right? So the death of Trayvon Martin, or the death of Tamir Rice, or the death of Renisha or Rakia or Mike, et cetera, and these names that we say that almost feel like a collective mourning of sorts. So when I heard All Right, a joyous song that seemed to respond to that mourning and to kind of give a kind of hopefulness and a confidence and an assertion that we gonna be all right was really important, coming just 2 weeks after the shooting in Charleston, right? So the significance of 1992 for you, but the significance of this running list of names that have been important for us to say since 2012 is kind of the date that I come to Kendrick Lamar's music. Two other points that I wanted to make in thinking about your talk. So when the Grammy performance happens and the provocativeness of that, I also thought about Beyonce's Formation. Right? And the ways in which Formation received a backlash in mainstream media, but was also debated amongst Black bloggers and intellectuals about how radical it in fact was, right? Was it radical or not? And so Formation seemed to be such a game changer for a mainstream popular culture that Saturday Night Live spoofed it, right? The day that Beyonce came Black. And so I think it's interesting to think about Formation in relationship to Kendrick Lamar's Grammy performance in terms of the differentness or the different responses, potentially different responses that might be explained by the different racial politics of their musical genres, right? So popular culture often read or heard as being mainstream or white. and maybe hip hop always being associated with Blackness in various ways. Also thinking about the regions that they represent, so that Beyonce is claiming a South that maybe in some ways is never kind of challenged in terms of its whiteness, right? In terms of the rebel identity or the South that will rise again. Whereas perhaps we think of urban or northern urban Blackness, right, as being ceded to African Americans since the Great Migration, right? So I think it's really interesting to think about the regional spaces that they're claiming, but also thinking about gender and the ways that potentially Black female singers may have stature in popular culture versus Black male rappers. So I think it's really interesting to think about Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar in conversation. But finally, I think about, or I come to Kendrick Lamar and thinking about kind of spatial Blackness and that image that you showed of Africa and Compton being inside of that. And so when I heard people talk about this, I heard people talk about other cities replacing the Compton. That Compton resonated with different different spaces, but that others were imagining that their city was in it, right? And so in this kind of cultural moment, thinking about the ways that Black civic spaces have kind of replaced victimized Black bodies. And so we can think about that not only in terms of Ferguson and Baltimore uprisings, but the Baltimore where Black women or impoverished women are sexually exploited in housing projects, right? Or thinking about New Orleans in post-Katrina. So not just the way in which state-sanctioned violence manifests with police shootings, but also state policies, how that manifests violence on Black bodies, but Black bodies in terms of spaces. So for me personally, that makes me think of a city like Flint, that has been poisoned, right? And is experiencing a social death, right? And the future of children being overdetermined. So what really stands out to me in terms of that Grammy performance, but also Kendrick Lamar's hip hop persona is the way that he represents, right? Or he represents where he's from, which is Compton and LA, but also this universal Blackness that you mentioned. And so that really speaks and resonates with me.
This is good stuff. I love that this light is so bright that I can't see anyone's reactions. This is beautiful. I need all of my future talks to have really bright lights in front of me. Hyperliterary. I'm gonna carry that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sequoia. Hyperliterary. You've given me a new thing. Something that you touched on that just has been having my mind racing lately, particularly about Kendrick Lamar, is this idea of autobiographical music, right? So discovering through this whole master's level education journey that I love to study autobiographical writing. Why do you write about yourself the way that you do? Why do you tell your story about the story the way that you do? I'm particularly interested in like hashtags, why you choose to put certain words next to each other to convey your story. And so what does it mean for Kendrick Lamar to share so much of himself in the music, right? To share so many levels and layers of himself in the music, almost to the point where you can't keep up, right? Where you have to listen to things 3 and 4 times. I have to listen to things, read the lyrics 3 and 4 times to really get what he's saying about himself and how he's kind of forming identity through music, individual and collective identity, right? So like, who are you? Are you who you say you are? Are you who they say you are? Are you both? Are you neither? Does it depend on the situation, right? Especially listening to the Black or the Berry, I can hear all of that, right? I can hear him owning this, like, I want you to know that I'm a very proud monkey, right? So like, what does it mean to kind of own this negative narrative? And then kind of, as you're writing your own thoughts, right? As you're writing how you feel about everything, to come out with, I'm the biggest hypocrite of 2015, right? What does that mean? That you read your life and you're situating yourself in the context of protest and also situating yourself in this very real narrative of like intercommunal violence, right? And you feel like I'm a hypocrite for that, right? That you worked that out through the song and you worked that out in the music. I don't think he's a hypocrite for that. If he was here, I would say that, but whatever. It's you working out your own story. Who are you? And I would love to flesh that out a little bit more. This kind of the idea, which is why I think he's so popular, right? It's because like he wrote a lyrical memoir, and everybody loves a memoir. Everybody loves the new memoir section, the Lifetime movie that turns into the book, right? So I find that really, really interesting to write about yourself and put lyrics to it. If I also had loads of time and kind of worked out what I wanted to write about a little bit more, I talk a lot about theology in hip hop, and particularly the song "You," and particularly that video.
There's also the Maya Angelou prayer.
Right. Right. I can't. It's too much. I can't. It's so much. Particularly listening to the song "You" and watching that video, it added another layer to the who are you? Are you who you are? Are you who you say you are? Are you who they say you are? Are you who you think God says you are, right? And kind of what that means in the Black tradition, in the Black lyrical tradition. And I'm not gonna be up here long, but I went to a conference for Black Christian students, and at the end of the conference, All Right played. And I'm like, okay, edited, right? Because secular and all his music is awful and all those things. But in a time where even theology is changing and church is changing or trying to change, it meant something for, in a context of Black struggle, Black liberation, Black freedom, Black protest, all of these Black blank insert revolutionary term here, that song would play right after like Jesus take the wheel, right? What does that mean? And so in the near or distant future, that's something that I would love to flesh out, and this idea of autobiographical lyricists and what that means for the future of music. I loved it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So, Sequoia, this was a lovely, lovely talk, and I operate a little bit more in the abstract. So the way I want to talk about your paper and your wonderful work that you're building, and we can't wait till you finish, is the way that you're letting us think through about occupying violent and contradictory space, both literal and sonic space, thinking about ways that Kendrick operates as a sonic archivist, an excavator, an archaeologist, of revisiting and digging up things that we think we have lost but are still always with us. And then the ways that we think through the way that Kendrick is working to create Black feminist coalitions and thinking through his position as a Black male feminist. So we love this anthem, so I'm gonna do a call and response tradition here with you all. So when I say, we gonna be all right, right, that's your cue. And Kendrick Lamar's now global anthem, We Gonna Be All Right, the artist opens with a sample from Alice Walker's 1982 The Color Purple, a now classic American story of Black women fighting to be safe, legible, and empowered on their own terms as they attempt to define their journey through threats of premature death, psychical and physical violence. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy, I had to fight my brothers, I had to fight my cousins and my uncles. A girl child ain't safe in a family of men, but I never thought I'd have to fight in my own house. I loves Harpo, God knows I do, but I kill him dead before I let him beat me. We gonna be all right. Lamar's sampling from Walker suggests a deep listening to Black feminist standpoints that allows him, through Sophia, a character made famous by Oprah, as we heard here today, to create a sonic coalition with the story of an African-American woman born and raised in the segregated South in the 1930s. Sophia has felt the psychical and physical violence of systemic oppression that engulfed the position of Black men and women. Expectations of protection at home were trumped by expectations of violence. Lamar expected violence. These false expectations between protection and violence are at the core of the power and racial struggles that we are experiencing here in the US today. Lamar seemingly had no chance at the rule of state-sanctioned violence coming from Compton. In fact, it's Sophia's refusal to stand down to oppression that fuses Lamar's refusal to stand down to anti-black male racism that connects these stories, these man-woman stories in hip-hop, because we're gonna be all right. Cut to 1987, Kendrick Lamar is born, a caterpillar, right at the rise of hip-hop culture's crossover from black and brown communities into the living rooms of the white majority of the United States. This is what Sequoia is trying to get us to think through, that these stories have always been here. We're revisiting them. It's a remix. Lamar is 2 years old in 1989. This is hip-hop's golden moment when Public Enemy is speaking back our history back to us. New black nationalist thoughts. Queen Latifah is heralding a hip-hop feminism that Joan Morgan uses to make up ideologies that say we can F with the grays. However, as new waves of black feminists such as Sequoia and the other women that I share the stage with today at this table, they're birthed through a long historical and critical genealogy of black power that is fused through struggles for freedom. Lamar is opening up this largely heteronormative male standpoint in hip hop, opening with the narratives of Sophia to say we cannot ignore the labor of black women in making intersectional oppression legible, because we gonna be all right. Lamar grows up with hip hop as his soundtrack and Alice Walker's samples remixed anew to forge opportunities for a new black male feminist dialogue. Kendrick Lamar pimps the butterfly, attempting to subvert the commodification and criminalization of hip-hop music so that a new generation, your generation, might not have to fight in their own house. Yet we must also remember that the act of pimping itself suggests violence across the gender sexuality spectrum and must not become a clever rhetorical move, but an action plan for dismantling sexual and systemic violence. Sequoia is showing us that at 28 years old, in 2015, Lamar's All Right became the anthem for the Black Lives Matter movement, as activists all over America chanted, "We gonna be all right," to mourn the countless black people killed by police in 2015 and provide hope for a better future. But this movement was led by a legacy of Sophia's, Sequoia. Alicia Garcia, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Cullors are born of civil rights generation parents and grandparents who see intersectionality as a starting point, not a destination, as they dance and march to the beats of Lamar in a complicated and often contradictory hip-hop matrix cipher that includes Alice Walker, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Patricia Hill Collins, Joan Morgan, Biggie, Nas, Kanye, Lauren, Trina, Frank Ocean, and Lamar. Lamar's anthem helps us locate a gray space where a girl child can be safe in a hip-hop family of men, a queer child can live out loud and start a movement, a gender-fluid kid can start a hashtag that will change the world, and a good black kid can rise out of the ashes of a mad city of Compton as a butterfly, but before he lets anybody beat him, another man or another woman, because we gonna be all right. Yeah.
How y'all doing out there? Y'all feeling good, all right? Like I said, I go by the name of Storm. And what I want to do, I want everybody that's here in this room right here tonight to truly step into and just come into what it is that I do as the MC. So, I'm not gonna talk a lot, because we all know what we're here for. But I'm not gonna actually cover any of Kendrick Lamar's music here tonight. But what I wanted to do was, I wanted to take a little bit of his music and some of the things that I loved, and I wanted to add that into my stage performance. And one of the things that I love about Kendrick Lamar, I love how he's able to mix the different styles of music together. Being an MC, it's not easy. Like, it's easy to mix R&B and hip hop. That's easy. Anybody can do that. They like brothers and sisters. But for somebody to be able to grab all the way in the back of the bag and take jazz and take folk music and mix that into hip hop, that's not easy. Let's go. Yeah. Y'all ready? Yeah. Yo. Yeah, I say it to your face at your wake doing your eulogy. I was asleep, but I've been awakened. You hit me with a blow, but my face steady, never shaking. 100 proof like Jamaican rum. 100 proof like Jamaican rum. Real from the start, you dummy, you real bum. For no exception, what exceptional spirit, heart, mind, body, and soul. I'm fearless, not digging seed and reap what you sow. Reap what you sow, dear. Tell them dig you a seed. Check your position with your seed. I'm kicking new flavor in your ear, and it's time for new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. I'm kicking new flavor in the ear, and it's time for new flavor in your ear. Now bounce. I give them that bounce. Yo, I tell them check your position on a total pole is pretty low. Main Street success got you looking like a bozo. White face paint on, dancing over times it ain't rose. Man, she came late this month. I'm saying what I feel. No feelings, no filters, and this is real. And if you can't stand to hold it, then you should get the fuck about the kitchen where the heat at. Big bro, out on bail, handed me the heat and told me hold that. I threw it in the box and I put it in the closet with my clothes at. I be the truth. Dudes are like no vice. I'm kicking new flavor in the ear, and it's time for new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. I'm kicking new flavor in your ear, and it's time for new flavor in your ear. Now bounce. Give them that bounce. Give them that bounce. Now give them that bounce. Give them that bounce. I'm kicking new flavor in your ear, and it's time for new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. Time for new flavor in your ear. Come on. Give it up for one bounce on the ones and twos back there. We got Josh William on the horn and Victor Jackson on the horn. Once again, I go by the name of Storm. You ready?
Nigga like me, man.
Sometimes I be feeling like if I lead this music thing, I don't know if people gonna still feel the same about me. I be like, are they still gonna love me?
You still gonna love me, man?
Give them that bounce. Come on, give them that bounce. I give them that bounce. Listen, my Alora niece no couture. I tell them I wake up like this. Cause my Alora niece no couture. My Alora niece no couture. Russell Diggy, Vanessa, La Angela, Kamora. I send them on their way, I divorce them. No prenup, shoot back. I'm taking everything, even the kitchen sink. I disappear before your eyes, you even blink. My Alora niece no couture. I'm ignorant, who cares? White House, better yet. Black market. Hey yo, I be Lady Eloise. Tell them you could be Marcus. I whisper in his ear to turn him on like I ain't got no panties on. Let's go somewhere, baby, let's get it on. Heated floors, vaulted ceilings, like the stuff at the Four Seasons. Indonesian, we overseeing. Immigrant, forever in the reason. Cause my Alora needs no couture. Russell Diggy, Vanessa, La Angela Camorra. My Alora needs no couture. Russell Diggy, Vanessa, La. Like the resurrection, I am resurrected. No punchlines, come test me and watch him fall into defeat. Yeah, I give him praise until I'm falling to his feet. Like the disciples, we can sit and eat, break bread, drink wine. Here's a toast. No butter on it, roast ham turkey. I go bananas on them, sorta Ron Jeremy. I got them right where I want them, got them squirming. You a job turkey, I am so aroma, like the type baby. I won't lie to him, I'm sitting quiet, but I just wanna hear you say something. Smoother than the baby's backside bottom. I tell him I'm so raw. Turn the beat on for no reason. He said we might end up at the Trump or the Four Seasons. January, February, winter, spring, December, and everything in between. No, yo, money ain't everything. Baby, let's make it about maybe you and me. We can make it about maybe you and me. Now say something. I just want you to. My Alora needs no couture. Russell Diggy, Vanessa, La Angela Camorra. My Alora needs no couture. Russell Diggy, Vanessa, La Angela Camorra. Now bounce. Now give him that bounce. I give him that bounce. Come on, give him that bounce. Yeah. Give them that bounce. Y'all still vibing with me? Y'all still out there? So I have a special guest that I'm bringing to the stage, but I'm gonna make y'all wait one more song, and I'm gonna bring her out. But I'm gonna do my thing. Yeah. Still know where to go. Still know where to go. Everybody, still know where to kill. Still know where to kill. Now put your hands up, busters, boosters, bustless, hold. Everybody, yeah, still know where to kill. Still know where to kill. Yeah, no introduction, life like a thesis. My opus, the realest shit I wrote. With a pen and a pad, I'm focused, back to business. No joke, I wrote it. No, I write it, recite it, for y'all to bite it. They trace it with a stencil, can't be messed with, period, on my menstrual. The cycle of life will continue, live and die up on the stage, resurrect back to the venue. Oh my God. Holy Jesus, divine intervention. I'm feeling like Mary's fetus. Break bread with the needed. Feeling the devil's poke. Oh, Father, I don't need this. They got me calling on the saints, Mother Teresa. From sea to shining sea, making them seasick. The book of storms, Holy Ghost quotes. The canon and the strolls, it was murder she wrote. It was like murder she wrote. Murder she wrote. No introduction, life like a thesis. My life is like a thesis. I said the realest I wrote. This had to be like the realest I spoke. No introduction. Life like a thesis.